Hi and welcome back. Okay, we are ready to start the measuring of and cutting to length the push rods for each side of the engine heads. A job that I've been putting off for quite some time, obviously. I've had about a week or so, or a week and a bit, since I've completed what you see in front of me at the moment. I've been putting it off because I just wanted to do a little bit of research and fully understand how to find top dead center and ensure that I had everything in the right place prior to committing to cutting the lengths of these rods. That said, I've been back through Weekend Hacks, Gavin's, Sonex's website on everything, and I can't recall anywhere that I have seen, other than just doing a nominal Google search on the VW engine, where and how to find exactly top dead center through Joe Norris's explanation. I don't think Gavin touched on it, and I don't know whether I'm supposed to know that or whatever. So I'm going to quickly just go through my understanding of it in hope that it may shed some light to those watching who don't know, but I'm pretty sure that everyone that does watch these does know, except for me. So I'm just going to go through it, and hopefully my explanation is a lot clearer to those that are trying to find TDC on this engine prior to cutting the push rods. So let's just quickly go through the firing order to start with on the VW engine. So this is the left side. Obviously, this is the flywheel end of the engine, and the prop is directly in front of me at the moment. So the firing order of the VW is 1, 4, 3, and 2, and a continuation of that thereafter. And the way that these cylinders are at any one time during that firing order, that only one piston and its opposing pistons will be at the top dead center mark. Now let me just explain that. One will be in the firing order of the top dead center, although the piston will be in exactly the same location, but the non-firing order. So in this instance, 1 and 3, if I set to what I think is top dead center on the propeller hub, or this end, by sticking a screwdriver down inside that hole, that's not going to tell me the true neutral position for the two valves that are on, in this case, cylinder number 1. So the test that I have done is I've taken just a normal screwdriver, and I've tried, you can see by that it's sitting quite close to the top. This one goes all the way in. Number 3 will go all the way in, and number 4 will go all the way in, and number 3 will go exactly the same location as that. So I need to determine whether the two valves are in their lowest position on either 1 and 3, and I'm going to show you how I've done that test, assuming now that I've now got cylinder number 1, which it is, in top dead center and the point of its firing order. So let's just bring the camera around and I'll go through it. Okay, so just grabbing, just put my glasses on so I can see what the hell I'm doing. Just taking one of these push rods. I've just put a rough mark where if you can see inside there, that goes fairly close to being all the way in to the valve where the camshaft, where it hits the camshaft, and you can actually see how far that goes in by that side, and this should be roughly about the same, which it is. So that tells me those two parts, well, these two rods, if I measure them now, would be in a neutral position for the camshaft, and on this side, the opposite side, this should be different. So I'm pushing that in, which is the same as one of the other sides on number 1, but this valve is different. You can actually see that it's sticking out a lot further compared to that side. That goes a fair way in. So the reason that is that the camshaft that runs from the crank on this side of the firing order, so let's just call it number 1, that's in its top dead center. The back side of the camshaft is actually perfectly round, whereas on the opposite side you've got your little sort of like teardrop lobes that might be in varying positions, which will give you your valves at varying distance. So your valve lifters, your rods, at different distances out from the cam, hence then pushing against the two valves and making them at different points, whether they're in the induction side or the exhaust side. So that's a very rudimentary explanation of how I found top dead center. So let's just move on to the actual push rod assembly itself. So part of the push rod assembly is this rocker arm. It comes in a kit and it is fully assembled as you see it here now. So that will just basically go straight in to here. They supply us a couple of little shims. Those shims can be, you know, 1 or nothing, 1, 2 or 3 shims each side to bring the rocker further out. So these little, I'm going to call them an elephant foot. There's a little flat spot on the back of this rocker assembly. If I can turn that round, there it is. So you can actually see a little flat spot. Now that has to hit these valves dead on. Now when I say dead on, it doesn't mean that it has to hit central to that. Sure, it has to be fairly central to it, but they talk about it being off to one side. Now everyone's covered that, so I don't really need to go into too much depth on that. But as the rocker assembly hits the valve, it will progressively turn the valve, I guess. So that's the intent of that. So it's sort of constantly sort of turning it either in a clockwise or anti-clockwise position. So I've had these rocker assemblies on, but I did actually have to move them backwards and forwards with the shims that were there. So I had these elephant's feet on the back side of the adjustment, so it would hit center and to one side. So not low, not high. Center to one side, so not low, not high. Not low, not high, but off to one side. So I've done all that, and I've had a little bit of an adjustment. Now I did send a question off to Sonex because I was concerned about that groove being in the up position, facing on the top side here, whereas the assembly manual did say that they needed to be on the bottom. So thank you to Nathan, who did come back to me and say that it didn't really matter. So when I say he said it didn't really matter, he's seen them installed both sides, so it didn't really matter in that extent, I guess. So I'm going to put them in the up position at the moment, and if anyone comes back to me and says, oh no, they should be in the down position, it's a simple means of taking this off again and flipping these over, and problem solved. It won't adjust any of the shims, and yeah, so that will be good enough for that. Also on the front here of the propeller hub, or the end where the propeller is, I've put a little mark and calling it top dead center for cylinders 1 and 3, and top dead center for cylinders 2 and 4. So I'm sort of saying that that's now in top dead center. I've now committed to putting the cam on here, and I have got my little adjusting tool wherever it is. I'm looking around for it now, which I can't find. I don't know where it's gone. I think it's over here. There it is. I adjusted this up, had it on and off probably 3 or 4 times, and I finally locked it off into a position. Now I've measured this at the moment, and it appears to be around about 283 or thereabouts, or 284 millimeters I think it was, which was fairly close to what Gavin had anyway. So most people's, well, 2 of that I know of, I think Gavin made a slight error of judgment, and so did We Can Hack. in their measuring of these, and there was a couple of comments made that people should measure every one. Now Joe talks about it and says there's no need to. Sure, you could measure the other side, which I will do, but I've only measured once. I've only measured it once, and I'm going to commit to being that these first 4 that I put in are pretty close to the same length. Now the variables, and here they are here, I've already cut them. So the variables are, unless you've got a lathe, and unless you sort of cut it off roughly to the length of it, and then put it in a lathe and then do an absolute precision cut, it's a near impossible task to get these all the exact length. You can grind as much as you like and do what you like, but you're going to be around about probably 1/2 to 3/4 of a millimetre, maybe a 1/2 millimetre at worst case scenario out. So my intent was that when I measured with this, I made them slightly longer, which therefore reduced the distance at the elephant's foot to be going further in, because every adjustment thereafter is only ever going to be out as they wear. So therefore I'm going to be tight. I'm going to be loosening this off and turning this in. So that's my intent, or my reasoning behind why I've only measured it once. Measured one rod, and then I'm going to cut them all the same. So I've moved this first part of it out, the 1.5 turns, and it can only ever, if I make it slightly longer in the measuring and cutting it, then that's going to come into maybe 1 turn. I think the main issue that people have been having is they've cut them way too long, which then they run out of distance here, or way too short, which then they run out of distance here. So hopefully I found a happy medium, and I'm going to cut them once on one side. I will then take this, when I find top dead center for number 3 cylinder, my apologies, 1/4, so the second firing, I'll measure number 4, then I'll measure it, and then if it's pretty close to that, I'll then commit to cutting the rods, throw on the rocker assemblies, and hopefully I've got the right amount of adjustment. So there are 2 forms of adjustment on each of these valves. The inlets are both on the inside and the exhaust on the outside. And I believe this had something to do with helping with the cooling effect, or something of the engines anyway, so it benefited in that manner. Now the turbocharged engine has 2 different valve settings on it than the naturally aspirated engine. And the settings that are, if you can read that, 008 on the inlet and 014 on the exhaust. So that's how it goes. So as I said, I've already committed to doing one side. I'm now going to commit to doing this side. So I've now got to turn the propeller hub to 180 degrees. So my number 4 is now in the top dead center mark. I will check the 2 points with my little one that's already measured. I will then confirm that the opposites are different. Again, another test that I've got number 1 in the right spot, and if I haven't got it in the right spot now, well, so help me. So let me go ahead and do that now, and I'll just come back to you shortly and let you know what the lengths of those were. Okay, just confirming, I've now turned 180 degrees, and I've now got number 4 at what should be top dead center. So my check is going to be, I'll try the opposite cylinder to make sure it is in fact different. Pushing that in, you can see that it's a fair distance off, about sort of 10 mil off there, and that is all the way in. So that's telling me those valves are in a varying position, whereas these 2 should be identical. That's pretty close to right being smack on the money there, and that will be the same, which it is. So I'm now going to put the little rocker assembly on in conjunction with my already adjusted rod length and to see if it's going to be fairly close to a 0.8, 0.008 adjustment on the inlet with the current elephant's foot at 1.5 turns on the rocker assembly. So let me go ahead and do that now, and we'll come back to you shortly. Just going to do the adjustment on this elephant's foot just to show those that may be interested. So I've just wound it all the way in, and I'm going to adjust 1.5 turns. So that's the top of my screwdriver. So that's 1.5 turns, and I'll lock that off. Now I've already done all of those. So let's now install it into the head and see what it looks like with the temporarily measured valve lifter. Okay, so the feeler gauge should be 0.8 on this side. I'll just loosen that off just a little bit. Here's my 0.8. Where is it gone? There it is. So that's tight now. So I'm just going to wind it back out till it hits, and we'll see how many turns it is. So that's 3/4 of a turn. So probably this side is going to have to be slightly shorter. Just pull the camera off. Okay, so you saw that this side was going to be about, it did start off at 1.5 turns. It ended up coming back to, once I adjusted the valve, at 0.08. It ended up being about 3/4 to close to 1 turn out. Now, again, you know, if I was to make these rods on this side maybe 1 mil shorter than what this side is, that would work. I'm going to just sort of roughly follow the same process as what I did on the bench over there to cut these, and I'll cut them all so the valves are pretty much the same, or the push rods are pretty much the same length. I can always take more off, but can never put it back on. So that's the methodology I will be following. So let me go ahead and do that now, cut these off, and then we will see what it's like when I put the rockers in their position with the push rods cut and pressed in with the little round bit on the end. Come back to you shortly. So just over here at the other workbench, you can see the first 4 that I've cut. You know, they're fairly sort of close, so I've just been using a little pipe cutter. It seems to work okay. So I've got my marks on some masking tape. I will just align my little toothy cutty thing and cross my fingers about 750 times and cut these second half of the push rods. Come back to you shortly. Hi, and welcome back. Okay, I've cut and fitted all of the push rods and fitted the little ends into them. I've marked them 1 and 2 because that's the first lot that I cut, and 2 and 4 for the other side. So now it's time to commit to putting this rocker assembly in and the push rods in their place. See how we go. So it's a fairly simple process. Just some Morley grease again and tighten her up, and we're done. Okay, I've got those two rocker assemblies in and torqued them up to 14 pound feet. Very hard job to do. I ended up stopping to film it because it was just taking me so long. I'd have to turn the crank so much and then try to, I'll just zoom that camera out a little bit, try to adjust them so they weren't too tight, and giving me some grief when I was trying to tighten these two nuts up here. So hopefully I've done it right. It appears to be those washers are fairly sort of tight, so it looks like they're not spinning, which tells me that that crank that is fully back. Yes, it looks like it's fully back. So anyway, let me get off and start to go through these cylinders now, one by one. They're all seated in properly underneath there. I'm going to torque these. I'm going to do the valve setting now for both inlet and exhaust, and hopefully it adjusts up, so there's plenty of adjustment left both ways in these. So let me get stuck into that and I'll come back to you shortly. Okay, I've just pulled the crank around to top dead center on 1 and 3. So if you now look at number 1, the two valves are actually in the level position. That tells me that that is top dead center for cylinder 1. And if you now look at number 3, they should be different. So you can actually see one valve is in and one valve is out. So let me go ahead and do the valve settings now on top dead center of number 1, and then I'll go and check number 4, then number 3, and then come back to number 2, and hopefully all my little rocker assemblies will have enough thread both in and out on them. So we'll get back to that. I'll get stuck into that and I'll come back to you shortly. Okay, just going through these settings. So I've now torqued up all of the rocker assemblies individually in turn. So I did 1, 4, 3 and 2. So 1 was at the time when I did checked it with the feeler gauges, it was at its lowest point. So I've now done them all. So these are my readings. Should have been at least 1.5 turns in. It ended up being on the exhaust and inlet side 1 3/4 turns. Cylinder number 2 was 1.5 turns where it should have been, but 2 3/4 turns on the inlet side. Now, worst case scenario is if I swap that for one that was a 3/4, I could probably then decrease that and increase that. So I'll leave that for either the comments or I'll probably do it later on myself. Cylinder number 4 was both 3/4 on the exhaust and inlet side, and cylinder number 3 was 1 1/4 turn and 3/4 on the exhaust side. So it makes it quite clear now when you want to look. So at the moment, I would say that my cylinder number 2 is at top dead center of the firing stroke. You can actually see that both those valves are basically in the level position, and if I get a little screwdriver wherever it is, that piston should be right at the very top, which it is. So that tells me cylinder number 2 is in the firing position. It tells me that it's in the firing position here on my little mark over here. Cylinder number 4, just to double check again, is pistons at the very top, but you can actually clearly see now that the two valves are in a varying position, because the camshaft on this side is on the lobes, whereas on this side at the moment it's on the flat side. So I'm happy with what I've done. They all seem to be sort of, I can't jiggle those at the moment because they're in their fully pressed position, but this one, as you can actually see, is loose on the firing side. So I'm assuming that's how it works. Let me just leave it at that and probably close this one off now and post it and get on to the next part of the build. So I'll come back to you shortly.